All right. Here we go. What DIVOC? That's right. Chapter 7, baby boom, no way. Divorce and vasectomy boom. Week 5, morning of April 19th, 2020. Kate sits in full protective gear beside Iris, who's propped up in her bed. The testing team has been in Kate's long-term care facility and is confirmed. Her center has patients who have the virus. A couple of residents have passed away and everything is on high alert as the staff tries to contain the virus from spreading. Iris has it, and while she is not on a respirator, she's been monitored very closely. Kate is a strong believer that one's mental state goes a long way in recovery. Iris is sociable, Iris is happy, and Iris has always loved life. She must have constant social interaction to not fall into a sense of despair. They talk about the staff shortage. They're bringing back retired nurses, temporary workers, and even the idea of soldiers to help with the staffing issues across the province. Kate feels strongly that limiting the number of outsiders, whether it be family, other workers, will help contain the potential for contamination. But nothing is foolproof. Iris, even in her fragile state, is of sound mind and wants the straight talk from her most trusted and long-serving caregiver. Kate tells her about the fact that 75% of all long-term government-subsidized senior facilities have the virus in their facility. After Iris gets all the info she needs, she wants to know how Kate is doing because she knows Kate cares for others before herself to a fault. Iris has known this for years. So the chat bounces from love, life, and whether it's better to have never loved at all or lose the one true love. Both women cherish their honest and deep discussions, one from a woman who has done it all, and the other who still has a feeling that she's missed out on something very real. Kate, you have done a great job. Do not blame yourself for any of us catching this silly bug. Nobody can be everything to everyone. Nobody. All of us living here now know how lucky we are to have you and the staff caring for us. We are blessed that we are under your supervision. Keep doing what you've always done for us. Nurture us. Love us and keep us safe as best you can, says Iris. Kate smiles. Thank you, Iris. You don't know what that means coming from you. She takes a pause and then she says, I just feel like I've let you all down. Somehow I wasn't able to stop it from getting into our home. Iris replies, Sweetie, you've done everything you can. I'll be all right. Don't be silly. I still have to meet this new hunk of yours. They both smile. They talk a little bit more, and this has helped both of them. Kate closely monitors Iris's breathing patterns. She is worried, though. As Kate is about to leave, Iris grabs her hand, which is in a protective surgical glove. Sweetie, listen to me. Your strength and confidence and calmness is contagious to everyone here. Don't let anxiety or worry get the best of you. The perfection of life is that we are all imperfect. You know what to do. You always do. So just trust your instincts. Kate smiles and puts both her hands on Iris. I promise. This virus won't get the best of me. I promise. I'll see you later. Kate leaves the room. Jake makes an early morning call to Miles. It's been a little while, and this virus thing hasn't been as bad over in the East Coast as it's been in Quebec. Maybe Miles is ready for an order from Jake. He might simply be grasping at straws, but Miles did say that Jake could contact him via email. It's quiet, so they can take their time to catch up and try to talk about ideas. Hey, bud, it's Jake. How goes the battle over there? The small talk drags on, and both men enjoy the leisurely distraction, but Jake is realizing his hope for an order of sporting supplies is not going to materialize. Suddenly, the phone dies. Jake says, Miles? Miles, you there? Jake calls back, but the phone does not pick up. He decides to wait a few minutes, but nothing. He says to himself, maybe he dropped his phone in the toilet also, and he chuckles. Weird. I'll try one more time. Jake calls, but nothing again. Ah, well, I'm sure everything is okay. We'll talk at some point. Jake is desperately trying to figure out how to get the company back up and running again. Emma and William are arguing across town once again. Each is taking shots at the other, but not resolving anything. Lizzie continues to slowly hide out in her room. At least when school was open, she didn't see much of the animosity and uneasiness in her house. Her parents' marriage is falling apart right in front of her, and she's too young to understand that there's nothing she can do and that it's not her fault. This little girl is bearing the brunt of two adults whose love for one another is vanishing. There is escalating anger, frustration, and volatility between her parents, and resentment for one another right in front of Lizzie's viewfinder. And considering they are a small family cooped up together for 5 weeks now, without the buffer of the grandparents and other outside sources, it is taking a toll on her. Lizzie decides to pick up the phone and calls her grandmother's house. Ryan picks up. "Hey, little cuz, how you doing over there? Did you want to talk to Grandma?" Lizzie is trying to put on a brave face and pretends nothing is happening outside of her bedroom and wonders if she could come over. Ryan knows the rules, and unfortunately, that's not possible. He says, "Maybe we could go chat in the backyard?" Lizzie jumps at the chance, and she sneaks out to chat with her older cousin. She doesn't mention anything about the argument inside, but Ryan gets the sense that she is lonely, bored, and maybe there's something else, but he just can't put his finger on it. This helps distract the little girl from the yelling that's going on that fortunately or unfortunately nobody else can hear. Jake and LeBlanc chat up a storm. From Jake's ill-fated radio phone call to Lando, or LeBlanc's ability to goof up on live TV, they are at least both still have their sense of humor. Jake is over the moon with Kate, while LeBlanc, who has no real prospects in the pipeline, has a crush now on a certain extraordinary reporter, Miss Zoe Sassy, TV news reporter. They both laugh, as LeBlanc always seems to have a crush on someone, and one day he knows that feeling will be reciprocated. The one thing they don't talk about, which they probably should have, is that LeBlanc has been feeling a little under the weather. Nothing serious, but these guys never talk about that kind of stuff anyway. They reminisce about the last time they were stuck at home. It was way more fun goofing around back in January 1998. That's when the big ice storm hit southern Quebec as a massive combination of 5 consecutive freezing rain ice storms cut off the power to the area and led to a widespread long-term power outages for days and even weeks. But they were 17 and 18 when that happened, and they ended up hanging out at their buddy's house, drinking in the basement until school opened back up. Now that was fun. And they were with a lot of friends, not alone. As a matter of fact, there was a baby boom that took place after that ice storm, and luckily for Jake and LeBlanc, they didn't get into that type of long-term commitment as they weren't that popular with the ladies at that time. This virus thing, though, is getting long, really long. And it's only been 5 weeks, but it feels like months. They take solace in knowing that even if it's lonely and boring, at least they're not stuck in a house with a bunch of little crying kids or in a combustible living arrangement. They've each heard from a mutual buddy who is going through that exact same type of situation. The buddy referred to the quarantine as a divorce and vasectomy boom. Enough is enough already. That's how Jake and LeBlanc feel, not to mention a lot of other folks out there. Yes, they know this is serious, sad, and heartbreaking, but they haven't been directly affected by anyone passing away from this virus. It hasn't hit home. LeBlanc even says, "Listen, old people die all the time. It's sad, but it happens every day from all kinds of diseases and old age. They're old." Both men decide not to say these thoughts too loudly because it lacks compassion and it is insensitive. But they're not the only ones who think this just a little. They'll keep these thoughts behind closed doors and just between them, however. They end up going full circle back to Lando's radio show fiasco. LeBlanc tries to downplay Jake's blunders and support his buddy. "Oh yeah, he's an idiot. Don't worry, nobody listens to him anyway." While he knows full well that's not true because it seems like everyone's listening to him. "Speaking of that idiot," Jake adds, "did you hear what else he said?" Referring to Lando, and I quote, he said, "You could call it a germ, you could call it the flu, you can call it a virus, you can call it many different names. I'm not sure anybody even knows what it is. What the hell does that mean?" Jake asks. He also said, our country for so many years has been ripped off by everybody, whether it's the World Health Organization or the World Trade Organization. And they're like, I call them the Bobbsey twins. Jake adds, that guy is a tool. This guy has his head so far up his ass. Why doesn't anybody hold him accountable and tell him where to stick it? As Jake, who keeps getting growingly frustrated. LeBlanc laughs. You gonna try again? It didn't go so well that first time. Or are you just jealous? At least he's seen your girl naked and you haven't. LeBlanc laughs, as the best friends kind of rag on one another all the time. Jake doesn't want to come across as a whiner because Lando did make him look bad. Yeah, okay, you got me. They both laugh, and Jake sees another call from Mac coming in. I have to let you go, bud. We'll talk later, LeBlanc said. LeBlanc says, no problem. Let's get together and have a beer soon. I'll keep my distance, I promise. They both laugh and hang up. Mac's calling in because another week is here, and so that means another trip to the grocery store is required for the two old men. Mac continues to build on rekindling the relationship with his son. They haven't talked this much in a while. Jake was a boy living at home with Therese and him, probably the last time they've been this much in contact. Mac also mentions that Arthur seems to confirm that he believes he has a lingering cold or something. Jake says he'll come on over and with supplies later on tonight. No problem, son. I'll see you later. Jake is such a proud guy that he hasn't opened up about him losing his job, though. I guess it's his pride. That pride. Over at the Celeste family household, Grandma mingles about trying to keep busy, and Grandpa Monroe is watching the news. Kate is at work, and Ryan is doing another shift at the grocery store. That's been the norm for a few weeks now, over and over and over. There's another news report from Miss Zoe Sassy. She's reporting on virus-related deaths, as they've reached 72 today in Quebec, and now up to 879 to date in the province. Just then, the news desk cuts away for a special national breaking news story. We have a developing news story out of Nova Scotia this morning. The RCMP is reporting an active shooter situation. Details are not clear right now, but from what we've learned, it seems there are multiple casualties and that a gunman may be driving a vehicle that looks like a police cruiser. Evelyn stops what she's doing and sits down. Starts watching the news as she sits next to Monroe, reaches out and grabs her husband's hand. Both are shaken and saddened by this new developing story. Lando and Lana have been having their own relationship issues. While Lana was asymptomatic from the virus, much like LeBlanc, she has unknowingly passed it on to others. In fact, something is up with Lando. He started coughing today and has a fever. Lana suggests he go see a doctor to rule out the worst case scenario, just in case. He categorically bites back. No way, I'm fine. It's a cold, that's all it is, and I don't want you making a big deal out of this. For all of Lana's faults, she genuinely cares about Lando's health. His celebrity status in the city and the financial fortune are what she really likes most about him, and his attitude is starting to get harder and harder to stomach. So she blurts back out, no problem. I have other ways to spend my time than worry about you, sorry ass. She decides to leave. Where's she going? Lando wonders. Doesn't know, and he doesn't seem to care all that much. He has a show tomorrow, and he needs to get some rest. Jake goes for a jog, and he continues to get better and better at it. He notices for the first time that he may be getting faster even. Oh, wait a second. An old man in a super tight, what looks like a vintage 1967 Montreal International Expo t-shirt has just passed them by. Zoom. Okay, maybe he's still kind of slow. Turns down the street and realizes he's very close to Kate Sr.'s residence, and he wonders maybe he can play with fire just a little. He's going to run in front of it, in front of the old folks' home, and maybe, by chance, a random meetup could happen. Maybe she might be outside and they would have to talk face to face. It could be luck. Call it fate, whatever. He figures why not try to increase the odds in his favor of seeing her again. As he's about to pass the building, his stomach goes a little wonky. He says to himself, what's this? Oh, come on, he thinks. Jake now has the sudden onset of the runner's trots, and it is an emergency. Okay, I need to go. A restaurant, a store, something, but there's nothing in the vicinity. Desperate times call for desperate solutions. So he runs down an alley, which he thinks is deserted, and he finds a secluded and safe spot and does his business. Relief and embarrassment engulf him, but at least nobody, as a voice now booms down from below, Chris, what the Chris? Qu'est-ce que tu fais là-bas? That's disgusting. A young 20-year-old hipster screams down from an apartment window, "Get the hell out of here! Oh my!" Jake is embarrassed and mortified, bolts back towards his house. He's totally embarrassed and wishes he now had that magical roll of toilet paper. He needs to get home. Jake ends up going home, take a shower to rinse off the embarrassment, and quickly heads out for a second to the grocery store. As soon as he enters the store, he makes a beeline to the produce section, and he runs into the young man who helped him get a job a few weeks ago. Right away, Ryan recognizes Jake. "Hello, sir. Nice to see you," responds Ryan. The two exchange pleasantries, and Ryan thanks him for helping him get that job, and a nice cordial conversation. They start talking a little about hockey and how they both miss watching games right now. Jake mentions, "I remember watching playoff games with my dad. It was awesome." Ryan quickly responds, "Yeah, that does sound nice." The short pause awkwardly derails the fluidity of the conversation, and Jake can sense that there was probably something deeper to the young man's answer and decides to throw out maybe a lame joke. "Well, we won't have to worry about the Canadian Stanley Cup parade this year. Nobody would be allowed to go anyway. Ça sent pas la coupe cette année." This is a French expression that means, "Guess we won't be getting the cup this year." Both men chuckle as Ryan's mask fumbles off his face a tad. All staff members in the store are wearing face masks, while most customers are still not. "That looks rather uncomfortable to wear all day," Jake says. Ryan responds, "Yeah, it's not that fun, but it is store policy, and you get used to it after a little while. I just wish it would fit better and was less annoying when you have to talk to customers. But we have to, no exceptions." Jake responds, "Well, like any winning team, you need to do what's best for the group, even when it can be annoying for the individual. The team comes first, especially if you want to win." Ryan replies, "I guess we are supermarket all-stars then." They both smile and they wish each other well. As Jake walks away, he looks back at Ryan struggling with his mask, and bam! A lady has just run straight into the back of him with her cart, and Jake falls to the floor. "Oh, sorry, the lady apologizes. "I was looking at all these arrows and I wasn't paying attention to where I was going." Jake shakes it off, a little embarrassed more than anything else, and this little old lady made him crumble to the ground like a big baby. "Oh, it's okay, it's okay." He finishes up the shopping as he wants to get his father his things and get home. It's been a rather strange day. Ryan gets home and he checks it on his cousin Lizzie on the phone. "How you doing, little cuz?" Lizzie mentions that she doesn't like it when mommy and daddy argue. It feels like it's all the time. Ryan wants to have her come over, but he knows she can't, and he's kind of at a loss about what he can do to help solve the situation. He comes to the conclusion that right now, Lizzie needs him, and that's the most important thing. He hopes his aunt and uncle can start to find a way to get along. He contemplates telling his mom about it, but she and he have their own problems right now, and he wants to prove that he's old enough to take care of these type of problems by himself. The two cousins talk for a good 15 minutes, and it makes Lizzie feel a lot better. He reminds her that she can have a window visit anytime and come over. As a matter of fact, he decides to go over and sit at her window with her and watch TV on the tablet together. This makes Lizzie really happy. As he walks over, he sits in the backyard next to the patio door window as Lizzie sits on the other side of the glass door. They start watching a cartoon that Lizzie likes, and Ryan notices that inside his aunt and uncle haven't seen him sitting there yet. It's a good thing because they're still snapping at one another from time to time, and in only a few minutes that he's been there, he's outside. He senses the tension in the home. Don't they see what's going on to Lizzie? He thinks to himself. It's like she's invisible to them right now. Back at Kate's residence, she has just received her virus test results. Negative. Phew. She was implemented a regular testing process for her staff and, when need be, the residents. She believes testing is the key, along with the regular hand washing, social distancing, and other measures. She convinced more people actually have the virus than the reported totals. Asymptomatic people outnumber those with noticeable symptoms, and that's why it makes it difficult to contain and manage this virus. It affects people in so many different ways. And the fact the government is ramping up its number of daily tests across the province has her happier, but she still feels that the average citizen is way too complacent, careless, and lackadaisical with their actions or their inactions. As stress levels continue to increase, she's trying to take Iris's advice to heart. She must continue to be the rock of her staff and residents and family members. She will make this work. She has to. It's on her. And it's the only thing she can think about. Jake lugs up the grocery bags to his father's apartment once again. He's starting to notice that by doing more exercise, he's feeling stronger. The jogging and the lugging the groceries and the taking walks and simply moving more than being at his desk most of the time has been one of the rare bright spots of all of this. Maybe we'll even start to lose some pounds. He remembers that he's about to knock on the door, that he better try to call Miles back tomorrow also. He didn't hear from him. He knocks on his father's door, but nobody answers. He can hear the telephone in the background. He slowly opens the door. Hey, Pop, you here? Yeah, I'm watching the news. I can't believe it. It's so sad, unbelievable how many people died, responds Mac. What, the virus? Yeah, my friend Kate tells me it's really bad, Jake answers. No, not that. In Nova Scotia, the shooter, says Mac. What? What are you talking about? A shocked Jake replies, and Mac is surprised that Jake didn't know about it. It's been on the news all day. He explains to him what happened, or at least what they know right now. It's one of, if not the worst mass shooting in Canadian history. Jake drops the grocery bags to the floor and thinks immediately of Miles. My God, Miles. Where in Nova Scotia did this happen, Dad? Do they have names of the victims? Oh my goodness. Jake explains to his father who Miles is and that he actually spoke with him this morning before his phone was cut off. Panic, guilt, and worry consume Jake. I have to find out if he's okay. He calls Miles' phone number again, but it goes straight to his voicemail. An immense fear of the unknown worries Jake to no end. His imagination creates horrible scenarios of what could have happened to his friend. This is not possible. He has to be all right. He tries to convince himself of that everything is fine. Max sees Jake's fears and helps calm his son down. They scour the internet looking for victim names. None of them are familiar to either of them. It gives them a moment of comfort because it's nobody they know, but they are real people, all leaving behind loved ones who's lost someone to a senseless crime. What is this world coming to? So much sadness and pain is happening all around us, whether it is a virus or a shooting. Whatever the root of the death is, the world seems so different than it was only a couple months ago. Jake had brought in 2020 like many of us, looking at a new decade with new hopes and new dreams, but that idea seems like a lifetime ago. Even if Jake doesn't know anybody who has died, shit is getting more and more real all the time. His own mortality and purpose in life spins his mind in a tizzy. Mac knows when his son is close to having a panic attack, so he fatherly calms his son's nerves and walks him away from the imaginary cliff. The raw emotion of the horrendous crime in Nova Scotia shifts the focus from all these virus conversation about Max. It ends up talking about Mac's birth province and the family trips that they took back in the day. Jake reminisces about the memories he has vacationing with his parents, from the absolute joy both men had during those trips with Therese to the beauty of that province and the soul and mind of that special lady who brought them all together. And it definitely leads to the cruel pain that it was for both of them when she suddenly was taken away from them. The natural flow of this raw conversation finally brings them to the elephant that is always in the room. What happened to this father and son? Why did they grow apart? They were such a strong family. Why were they not able to keep what they had without Therese? If anything, her death should have brought them closer, not driven them apart. They both finally opened their hearts where their pain was locked in and explained the depression they both fell into. Jake says, I needed you, Dad. It felt like you had died too, and I needed you. Mac agreed that he felt like he died and that he couldn't shake his pain, and he didn't see how he could ever help his son. He felt lost and broken. The grieving that both men did separately ate away at this relationship. Mac tries to take the blame and says, I'm the father. I had to be there for you. You lost your mom. But Jake replies lovingly, Dad, you lost the love of your life. We were both broken. The two men have finally faced part of their past that they couldn't explain or even understand. But this letting go and opening up was now a chance to reconnect completely. It wasn't about finding blame or scapegoating or understanding the reason they couldn't make it work. It's just the fact that they had lost their way without each other, and the only way that they could find each other was with each other. Any sense of pain or resentment and misunderstanding or anything else that had kept them apart from one another was now torn down to the studs and ready to be rebuilt and strong as it ever was. They unleashed the pain that was locked away deep inside of them for years. And together, they know they are stronger and happier. Therese would be smiling more in heaven today as her two men had finally found peace with the past. Jake gives his dad a big hug, and social distancing be damned. Jake reminds Mac to give Arthur his groceries, of course. He'll do it tomorrow, as it's kind of late and they're going to talk again. A few hours later, Jake can't sleep and stares up at his bedroom ceiling while his heart-to-heart talk with his dad calm him down a little. He is worried sick about Miles. Suddenly, his phone glows in the darkness and a text message pops up. It's Miles. Jake's heart skips a beat for a second as he read the short but very important message. Miles declares he and his family are all safe and he's sorry he hung up on him and didn't get back to him sooner. But as they were on the phone, his wife came running into the room and grabbed his phone and they hung up. They locked their front door and hid in the basement of their home with their 2 children as the active shooter advisory was happening right around their neighborhood. Miles adds they are okay and he would only call in a few weeks. But right now his province and his community and his neighbors are grieving and all his energies will be with them. Be safe are his parting words. Jake stares at his phone as he wave a new emotion consumes him. Relief that his friend is okay, but sorrow and shame and guilt that other friends and families were not so lucky. Even if he didn't know anybody who died from the shooting, it feels very real. This sparks a thought from Jake. Why is it that the shooting deaths feel more real than the virus and the deaths that come from this virus? He doesn't know anyone who's died in either case, but one resonates, leaving a more intense feeling of sorrow than the other. He feels more guilt and confusion. Maybe he should be taking what's happening in his own backyard a little more seriously. The quiet of the long-term care facility at night masks a day of shock that has traveled through the center. Residents are saddened by the senseless violence that transpired in Nova Scotia. And for the first days and weeks, it seems as though the virus has taken a back seat to something else. Iris is not sleeping yet, however, which is unlike her, as she is usually up very early. So she must be thinking or worried, or it's as though she is transfixed staring out the window at the large moon in the sky. The moonlight cascades down onto buildings and the landscape off in the distance. She very quietly gasps one last breath, closes her eyes, and passes on. Iris's body has succumbed to this virus. She will now lie peacefully in her room alone until she is discovered early the next morning. This has been a very, very sad day indeed. That, my friends, chapter 7.